What's up, my loyal 11 subscribers? I love you guys. No homo. We've all been there. We say no homo. You accidentally, graze your homie's arm. No homo. You accidentally walk a little close to your bro. No homo. You accidentally slip and fall onto your homie's erect penis while your pants accidentally slip off as you fall down. And then you have difficulty getting up, upon which makes you, sort of be grinding on his dick, just trying to get up. And then he involuntarily busts in your ass. And so, you end up feeling a little awkward about it afterwards. So you say no homo. That happens. You say no homo sometimes. Now, when I was in 8th grade, no homo was quite a thing among our friend group. We would be saying it all the time. We just thought it was funny. We just thought it was funny to say no homo. What's wrong with that? I don't think that's a sin. I don't think that's a problem. Unfortunately, a certain someone thought differently. So I was in this friend group, at my small Christian school in the great city of Gonzales, Texas. And we were all a part of the same church. And so we would all go to the same youth group at this certain church. And, I kind of look fondly on that youth group when I think back on it, because it was actually quite a good time. I met some good friends at that youth group. I had this one girl named Emily in that youth group who I had a deathly crush on. And then I asked her out, and she said yes. And then after she said yes, I ended up asking her, hey, when do you want to go out? A few days later, upon which she says she was talking to somebody. And that very much ruined, my perception of love to a certain extent, and made me very sad. But that doesn't have anything to do with this. Just a little bit of backstory on that youth group. I was quite fond of this youth group. But one day while I was at this youth group, and we were having, your typical youth group conversations, with the youth pastor. He was like, don't have sex before marriage. You can't be fucking around with these chicks. I didn't really listen to that. But anyways, we were having a good teaching about the holy word of God. Upon which the head pastor of this church opens the door and says, hey, Christian, and then the name of my friend, this one friend who was in my class, who I was, fairly good friends with. Don't really talk to him much anymore. Probably should reach out to him. But he told us to go into his office after the teaching is done. Now, a little bit of backstory about this friend. This friend was, in fact, the son of that pastor. Pastor's sons. But I was good friends with this guy. And so we were joking about it, wondering what was going to happen. Wondering what the deal was. And we were like, oh, we're in trouble. But we didn't know what was going on. Now, this pastor had caught wind of the fact that we were saying no homo, on occasion. Generally, you would think that's not a big deal. Generally you would think, hey, that's just a thing you say, But he didn't take too kindly to this, because there did happen to be 2 members of his church body, of whom were members of the LGBTQIA plus community. Now, you see, I don't have a problem with the LGBTQIA plus community. I think no homo is just a way of signifying to people that you are not a member of the LGBTQIA plus community. So the members of the LGBTQIA plus community do not get the wrong idea of you. But there's nothing wrong with being a member of the LGBTQIA plus community. As a matter of fact, I have a good friend who is probably watching this video, who is one of my 11 loyal subscribers, who is in fact a member of the LGBTQIA plus community, and I am quite fond of that gentleman. But anyways, we went into his office after the great teaching, of the Holy Word of God. And he sat us down, and he was going to have a little conversation with us. And quite a conversation we did have indeed. Because he sat us down and he told us about how we should not be like hurting our witness with the members of the LGBTQIA plus community. And in fact, there happened to be one gentleman of whom came to this church on the regular, of whom was in fact a big gay himself. And he was getting quite angry at us about the fact that we were saying this. And I think he was more mad at his son than he was at me. I just got roped into this for some reason. And I'll never forget this, he sits, his son is next to him, and he leans over to his son, and he points at the stage of the church, and he says, and I will never forget this until the day I die, when I am 120 years old. He said, I will make you go up on that fucking stage if you say that one more time, and I will make you apologize to the entire church body. Now, cussing. I say fuck all the time. Fuck this, fuck that, fuck you, fuck you. But I was not used to people around me, saying fuck quite often. And it was quite jarring to me that a pastor, a man of God, was saying fuck to his very own flesh and blood, his son. But I don't know. He was quite passionate about this issue. Now, for my Christian audience, you can get into whether or not you think that's all right, trying to be all accepting to the gay people as a pastor. I don't have much of an opinion on that. I'm not a very religious man myself, but this was quite a jarring experience for me nonetheless. It made me think, geez, this is this pastor, and he's getting very angry at his son for merely telling people that he is not gay. Quite an odd experience that was. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this video. Please hit that like button, that subscribe button, smash that notification bell as always, and subscribe to my Twitch. Have a good day. I love you guys. No homo.